All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us on a Real News interview. I'm Clifton French with Real News Michiana, joined by Spencer England. Spencer ran for Indiana Senate. Spencer's become a friend of mine over the past couple of years. He ran for Indiana Senate District 8 seat, correct? On the Republican primary, lost in a pretty close three-way primary race to Mike Bohacek. And Spencer, first, thanks for joining us.
No, I appreciate you taking the time to talk. I haven't done anything since the election.
Yeah. What have you been up to, man?
Honestly, just catching up with everything in life. We got 3 girls at home still, and everybody's starting school, and things get kind of crazy. So you take 3 or 4 months off to run for an office you didn't plan on running for, and it's very intensive. So it takes a lot to catch up.
So I'm the reason that I'm talking to you is there's been a lot going on, specifically with another person who ran and lost in the primary, a guy by the name of Joe Layne, who is on the redevelopment commission here in St. Joe County, and also the new chair of the St. Joseph County Republican. I know you ran against him, and when you and I were talking, I really wanted to clear the air on a bunch of stuff that he has been saying about you, the lies he's been spreading about you, what he's been doing with other people, essentially claiming that you were a plant by Mike Bohacek, who is the current state senator, that you were a plant by him, and that you ran, that he essentially recruited you or paid you to run to split the vote that against him.
Hard to make that up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like you wonder where those stories come from. When you mentioned it to me, it was kind of the first time I've heard of that, and that was just a couple days ago. And I had, you always kind of hear things like that running in and all. I'm not a political person. As far as being involved, I've been involved for a long time, but never directly. So having something like that being said about me is kind of hilarious, because there's a couple of people who have mentioned this, online or whatever, and never directly asked me to my face, which I'd be happy to take a lie detector if they would like to pay for it. But it's crazy to me. So yeah, I don't know where that came from or how it started. I was shocked to even hear it.
So this is my thing. This has become a common tactic, actually. I think with the new leadership that's running the GOP here in St. Joe County, where they are doing whatever they can to purge the party, to take over, to anybody who they see as potential competition. Myself, the former chair, the former vice chair, current elected officials, Dan Schatzel, who's on the county council, who doesn't always adhere to their push and their narrative, right? And really, I think it all kind of, now that I kind of look back on it, the warning signs were with you. Full disclosure, you remember this. When I found out that you were running, I was supporting Joe Layne. And when I found out that you had filed to run, I called you. And I said, hey, this guy, Joe Layne, is running as well. And I think he's extremely conservative. I don't want to see this get messed up, because, Mike Bohacek, everybody knows he's not really conservative. And you said, oh, great. I didn't know there was somebody else running. I didn't know somebody else was running. And get me a sit down with him. If he's legitimately conservative, I will back out. I'll get out of that. And so I put you and Joe Layne in touch to have a discussion. What happened with that?
And the thing that's interesting about the conversation we're having regarding this, what's being said, is I really, as a person, I tend to I got along with him when I initially met him. I think Joe's probably an okay guy. Like, a lot of people say, oh, so-and-so's a nice guy. He seems like a nice guy. And I don't have a personal vendetta against the guy in any way. But we sat down, we talked for probably, I want to say 2 hours now, but I think it was like 4 hours. Maybe it was around 2 hours, But we sat down for quite a while at his house, and I had a conversation. I kind of had a litmus test that I ran through with him, and the biggest concern for me was, where have you been the last 4 or 5 years with all this crazy stuff going on? Well, I've kind of been on the sidelines watching. Well, you know what? I was in it. I was active. I was doing things. And so he seemed like a conservative guy, but the fact that when people decide to run for office, especially politicians, they find the specific time to jump into a situation rather than always being involved and being in situations. So I have been going to meetings. I've been a precinct person. I've been involved with party happenings, with party events. And it's not necessarily a party thing for me, but he didn't really pass my litmus test. And I was fully vested in this as far as personally, mindset wise. I usually set my mind to something. I run through it 100%. And again, I didn't win, but numbers show numbers. I think I did pretty well for the amount of money that was spent between the 3 candidates. And when I met with him, there's something just didn't vibe right with me. And you're right, you did set it up. I liked the guy. He was very cordial. His wife was very nice. It just, something didn't feel quite right. And as time went on through the race, things started not adding up. That I was hearing him say versus what I knew to be factual information. And then after the race, some things started coming out, which was brought to you, and some things you had noticed on your own, and two goes together. So,
yeah, I mean, there's this, I'm going to call it a solar scandal at this point. And anybody who's watching, go to realnewsmichiana.com, and just, search my website, search for Joe Layne. You'll see what's going on. I mean, he's trying to pass days people from party members from talking about and criticizing anything that's going on within anybody within the party or anything. They're trying to, they just, I'm going to write a story about this, but we can give it a little preview. Joe Layne was trying to send out another email. I mean, they've been sending out emails just because I'm doing my job and telling the truth. And so they were going to send out another email that was by several elected officials, but email was going to attack me, attack Councilman Dan Schatzel, and it was going to explain what people needed to do to maintain a good standing within the party. Straight up Bolshevik, yeah. 1984 communist, hey, go to your re-education camp.
That's exactly right.
And then you can, and then we're good. But you have to be, I mean, it's crazy while preaching unity, speaking out both sides of their mouth. Right. So, I thought that there was an interesting thing here. The accusations of you being recruited, paid by Bohacek, which is just laughable. I mean, I know that you ran because you can't stand Bohacek. And that's coming out.
It's kind of like Trump. Let me just tell you this. It's kind of like Trump for the Democrats. They can't stand. It's a little opposite. I mean, because they can't stand Trump just because of Trump. I enjoy Trump because of his policies. Do I think I could have a beer or a drink with the guy? Absolutely. But it's not Trump that I fall in love with. It's the policies that work for the American people. Yeah. When it comes to Bohacek, he's a nice enough guy to have a conversation with, but principle, we are completely different.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I mean. You can't stand his policy. You can't stand, what he's done. Where he stands on a host of conservative issues. So, that rumor comes up. You and I were talking. You're like, well, that's funny because Joe offered me a job to step out. Essentially, I mean, I'm going to put words in your mouth. Joe tried to bribe you to drop out of the race. Before we move on, if you're watching this video on YouTube, don't forget, like this video and also subscribe to our channel. That really helps us out. And don't forget, visit realnewsmichiana.com. There you'll find daily investigative stories, exclusive content put together by me. You'll also be able to make a one-time donation, or if you want, become a subscribing member. All of that support helps us keep the lights on.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it a bribe. I wouldn't, because I didn't take it that way. But when you mentioned this conversation about people are saying, well, Mike, wanted you to get or hired you to come in to ruin everything with a three-way. The fact of the matter is, as much as I like Joe as a person, meaning like I don't know him well, I mean, we're kind of learning a little bit more about him. He offered me the job first to help him win LaPorte County because it's such a big county. He's not from there. He's not known. I'm
Mhm.
very well known. I mean, like it or not, people know me. So all media is good media, and I've been around. I've been active, and so it was Joe first who offered me, hey, why don't you come work with me, help me win against Mike. And then during an election meeting, Mike pulled me to the side and did the same thing. Hey, what do you want? You want a board seat? You wanting to? I mean, I'd like you. Why don't we help beat Joe Layne? And I'm like, I came home and laid down and I talked to my wife. I'm like, I can't believe both. You're over the target when both your opponents offer you something.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like I
Yeah.
said, it was an interesting. I don't want you to say necessarily words in my mouth either. And I mean that because I don't necessarily think he meant it as a bribe, but let's be quite honest. If what he or whoever's putting this out about taking a job from Mike is going to be out there, then it needs to be well known that they both offered me a gig. So that's a lot. I'm not a rich guy. My wife and I are both, retired military, and we do okay for what we've got with kids. And I used to make crazy money, but money's nice to have. But nobody really necessarily offered me a job. But meaning like physical money. But offering you a position to me means I'm not doing it for nothing. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, tell me about yourself. So what's going on now? Obviously you're still involved, but you were telling me retired military, you were in the army, correct? Um,
yeah, yes.
yeah. And so retired army, and you're still staying involved. You're in Stark County now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm in Stark County. Stark County's an anomaly. It's the county is generally a Republican reddish area, but the city itself of Knox, the main little city, is Democrat, which is like old school Democrat, and which I
Yeah.
get along with both. My dad was a UAW steel worker for 40 years, so I understand the working class people. I mean, I am a working class guy.
Mhm. So
So, I mean, the thing is, I'm
what's your
staying
plan?
involved. Go ahead.
You got a plan? What's your plan?
Yeah, we have a plan. We have a plan. Long as my wife doesn't hang me, I have a plan to move again, do some things in a few years. We're going to be doing some fundraisers here in the next, say, 6 months
Mhm.
inside of a window. We're going to stay active. I've got my eye on a position and I've got my eye on a long-term position, but I want to make sure it's the right move before I just jump and become that political pundit. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that the move is, I don't want to be the political hack, so to speak. I want to make sure it's right for the people. And that's why it was important that we talked about this issue tonight, because I want people to remember 2 or 3 years from now when people said things and then didn't follow through, when they said things and then they were the opposite of what they said.
Mhm.
I'm exactly what I said I am. And, others may or may not be that by the time we get to that point. And so people need to remember these things.
Yeah, I think folks are starting to realize quite a bit. I know in the North Liberty area, um, it was a lot of these folks. I mean, I've been very open about corruption that I believe is coming from a certain councilwoman, Amy Drake, and whether you agree with me or not. However, her and kind of her caucus that she's built has completely fractured. They got 100% support out of the North Liberty area, and it's gone. It's gone because people see what's happened, right? They see what's going on, and they're not dumb and
Right.
they're not blind. So they realize that they've been tricked, they've been gaslit, and things are really starting to come around. I want to get back to, you were talking about doing some fundraising stuff. You and I discussed a little venture that you had planned. What's going on there, and when is it happening? I mean, do you have any plug for it?
I don't want to be too open about this yet because I want to make sure this is something that is doable. I mean, it's doable, but I want to make sure it's going to be. I want it to be for the right reasons. Okay. I left my committee open, and there's opportunities there over the next 3 years to do some things, but I want to make sure what I'm doing is the right. I'm all about strategy, and I think that there is a large group of Second Amendment supporters that have been left out when it comes to political. Even the Republican Party, they like to tote Second Amendment when they're up there on the, when they're up there on the board, or when they're up in front of people speaking. But when it comes to events or polling in new members and doing things that are Second Amendment centered, a lot of them don't do that. I don't want to be one. I want to be one that backs up what I say, does what I say. And I think that those, the key issues that are important to people, like Second Amendment, family matters, school choice, those things need to be things you're actually part of, so that you understand when you're running for office what it's going to take to accomplish certain goals. People promise every day, think, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. There's people in Marshall County that'll tell you, like I said, Mike's a nice guy, but he promises things that he didn't follow through with. And I want to make sure that I'm accustomed to what's coming up for challenges that can be handled or can't be. And then you're forthright with people. I'm not going to tell you I hate solar, and then I'm going to turn around. Not that I hate solar, but I am principally against solar because solar doesn't stand on its own. It's just tax subsidies. If it wasn't subsidized by the state, it would never be it wouldn't work. So there's reasons behind why I think the way I do. And a lot of it has to do with fiscal conservatism, which it seems like a lot of Republicans forget about when it comes to jobs.
I do think that there's a fine line here. It's, hey, listen, your property rights, right? Which I completely get and understand. And then there's, hey, listen, as a taxpayer, I don't like to be paying for you to get rich. I don't like to be paying for something like. So what issue do you stand on, or can you stand on both issues ethically, right? And I think that your argument is fairly convincing. It had me thinking a lot more and changing my mind. I thought solar, personally, I don't know why you'd be putting solar in an area that half the year you're getting zero energy capture. But I thought, well, these farmers, you can do whatever they want with their land. You kind of you put it in a different perspective, which really made sense and honestly changed my mind. So,
well, people want to put it on the aspect of, I heard a farmer in St. Joe County at the council meeting they had for the moratorium, and one of the guys said, "Hey, this is how did he put that? This is generational wealth for me and my family if I use my farm for this." And I thought to myself, well, as soon as the Democrats hear that, they're going to come back and say, okay, great. Well, you need to pay for my degree because that's generational wealth for my family. Yeah. There has to be I tell guys all the time, if you want to pay $2 million, $3 million, $5 million, and you want to put solar on your property, then you do it. But using a 60 or 70% tax subsidy, now I'm not saying they're receiving that, but the companies, to pay for solar, knowing that it isn't giving back. Like people have said, well, oil gets subsidies as well. I'm like, you're right, oil does. They don't need it, but the reason they get it is several reasons. Number one, jobs. Number two, it's subsidized about 15%, and then what it puts into the economy every year is about $4 trillion in revenue. Yeah. Solar's not going to do that. It is all about the green space, Green New Deal, blah, blah, blah. So I think logically, and when people try to argue the land use thing, I'm like, well, I'm going to just shoot that down because you're not putting a junkyard in your yard if you want to do that. They're not going to allow that. The only reason they're allowing this is simply based on monetary gain, whether it's by the state from the feds or whether it's from the state to the landowner or the companies that are employing. And so it looks good on paper. Well, we all know what happens with plastic bags, right? I call it the great plastic bag debacle. In the 90s, they said, we got to get rid of paper bags. We need to go to plastic bags. And now the ocean's full of plastic. Everything went to plastic, and now the oceans are full. So I don't want that to happen.
You're cutting down too many trees. Well, you know what? Trees are a renewable resource.
Well, now you can recycle everything.
Yeah.
Right? You can recycle now.
all that stuff. all it's going to the landfill anyway. You know this. Like
Right, yeah.
nothing's really being recycled. It just makes you feel good. And you have to,
but I mean, if we're going to talk factual information, a stack of paper bags can be recycled to other paper bags. Plastic bags cannot be recycled to other, or at least efficiently. And so my argument is, you created this mess of plastic in the ocean with, we went to plastic bottles, we went to, 6-pack containers that had the plastic lids or tops. It's like, so now I don't want to see another debacle where, if you look at a company like Germany that's been doing renewable energy since the early 90s, they're getting like 17% of their energy from solar. I'm like 17%. And they've spent hundreds of billions of dollars, and now they're reopening natural gas plants. I'm like, look, hang on a second. Just because there's free money doesn't mean you have to take it.
Yeah, they're relying on Russia for almost all of their energy to be piped.
Yeah.
I mean, unreal. Well, Spencer, I really do appreciate you sitting down, talking with me. We need to keep in touch. Let me know what your future plans are, because, we'll have you back on. We'll talk more. And keep me posted on stuff that's happening down in Stark County as well, and out in LaPorte, so I can continue to, broaden my reach out into those areas of Michiana.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm glad to clear this up. And I'll say it again. There was absolutely no conversation between Mike Bohacek and myself about anything about a race. As a matter of fact, he asked me why the heck I was running, because he thought we were buddies. And I was like, we're principally different, man. So yeah, let's just clear that air right away. And maybe things can be cleaned up a little bit. I know it's good that we have this infighting in the party. I think it's keeping it inside the party is one thing. The problem is, they don't like it when people think outside the box like we do, and we just have to keep pressing them on, because there's a lot more of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again, and everybody, please go to realnewsmichiana.com, become a subscriber. Spencer's a subscriber; he has been for years. He knows the worth of independent journalism. That's not scared to get out there and tell you the truth. So, thanks again, Spencer, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, Cliff. One more thing. If people want to get involved, I want to put this punchline out there. England for Senate. I'm sorry. England, the number 4 Senate is my website. Okay. You can go on there, check everything out, get a hold of me if you want to be involved. We're not done. We're going to come back swinging, and I think we'll do well next time. We've got a little bit more funding this time.
Awesome. Englandforsenate.com, everybody. England, the number 4 Senate.com. Once again, thank you. And we'll talk to you soon.